Hi, I'm Daniel Lucas, and welcome to Book 101 Review. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years, and today I have my special guest. She is the author of the book The Heart of Homestay, no other than Miss Jennifer Robin Wilson. Welcome to Book 101, Miss Jennifer, and can you please introduce more about yourself?
Yeah. Hi, Daniel. Thanks for having me on the show. I'm excited to be here. My background is in homestay, as you said. My mother, Robin, started the Canada Homestay Network 30 years ago, and it has grown from a little operation in her basement in Toronto all across Canada. And in the last 30 years, our organization has placed close to 100,000 students with Canadian host families from over 130 countries. And my
Mm,
role in the organization was as CEO for about 12 years. And I joined the organization the first 5 years. I served in a bunch of different roles, but I ended up working with my parents for almost 20 years. And I still serve on the board of directors for our organization.
Miss Jennifer, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge to the world. Thank you so much. What inspired you to write The Heart of Homestay?
Well, as I say, my mom started our family business, and over the years since we began placing students with host families, we always felt that we were in service of those students and their families. We wanted to provide them with a home away from home experience that we would want our own children to have if they were traveling abroad. So I bring this philosophy of caring and love and companionship and support into the book. I really wanted to bring host families a message of how transformative and powerful homestay experiences can be. I think a lot of hosts are attracted to hosting for the right reasons, and some people look at it as more of a money making endeavor. And I wanted to help them understand all the benefits of hosting besides the potential income for your family.
So, Miss Jennifer, what's the difference of homestay or Airbnb?
So Airbnb tends to revolve around renting temporarily for short term a room or an entire house or apartment to a stranger. The host is only involved as somebody who helps you get checked in and answers questions if there's any problems during your stay. Homestay is completely different. Homestay is a home away from home. So the student is living in the house with the family in a spare room and integrating with the family. They share meals together. The families might need to um, drive them to their, you know, soccer practice or help them get to and from school unless they take public transit or a school bus. The families and the student do activities together on the weekends. It's really meant to be more of a cultural immersion experience.
So, how does the book define the purpose of homestay experience?
Yeah, the purpose really, as I said, is to provide a home away for an international student who's traveling abroad, often for the first time, to help them get settled in this new culture, learn the new language, and make friends that will last a lifetime.
Yes, for sure. So, what are the key challenges of hosting international students that the book addresses?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So the book is organized around those challenges. It's roughly laid out sort of chronologically from arrival to departure. So the first chapter is all about how to help your student get settled, and the last chapter is what to do when it's time for the student to leave and how to make the most of that relationship that you've cultivated. And then all the chapters in between they cover topics such as empathy and belonging, food, physical expression, communication and language. And all of those topics kind of circle around culture and the role that culture plays in those experiences. And then the third part of the book is all about how knowing yourself and learning how you show up. So there are chapters on difficult conversations and how to move through difficult conversations. There's a chapter on second chances and forgiveness. There's one on bias. And there's one on relocations, which is a term we use in the industry for describing when a student has to move to a new host family.
How does the book emphasize cultural exchange and mutual learning in a homestay setting?
Yeah, it's one of the main themes of the book. So, as I just mentioned, there's three parts. The first part is about treating the student like a family, like part of your family. And the second part is about culture. And the third part's about knowing yourself. So, culture actually weaves throughout the entire book, but that middle section is all about how culture shows up and in different parts of our lives. And I think the one of the great takeaways from the book is really helping hosts understand that the key to building intercultural competence is not learning individual rules of specific cultures. Like in Japan, they like to take their shoes off when they come in the house. Like that's not going to be how you learn intercultural competence. It's helpful and you ought to learn those kinds of things, especially if you're hosting a Japanese student. And really, the key to intercultural competence is two things. It's one, it's behaving in a way that facilitates understanding so that when you come across a culture that you haven't studied, you can still get by. And the second thing is understanding your own culture first. So I think we often don't recognize or understand the rules that our culture has because we've just grown up with it. It's like a fish in the sea doesn't know that they're in water. It's the same thing with culture. So the more you can learn about how what you've learned about culture and your culture as you've grown up, the better suited you'll be to recognize when there are cultural differences between you and your student that might be leading to misunderstandings or conflict.
So, how does the book explore the emotional aspects of hosting?
Yeah, well, the title is all about it, the heart of homestay. The emotional aspects of hosting, of course, I want to emphasize the benefits in the sense that many host families, as I said, develop really strong relationships with their students and are able to keep in touch with them for decades after they've parted ways. And there are also other emotional burdens related to hosting. So, for example, a lot of students experience homesickness when they first arrive in a new country. And it can be very difficult as a host family to watch somebody suffer through that experience. And that burden of caring for somebody who's struggling, it shouldn't be underestimated. And there is a light at the end of the tunnel. These are predictable responses to settling in a new culture, in a new country, with a new family. And there are many things that host families can do to help support their student through an experience like that. That's just one example, but I think there's lots of examples of times when things could get challenging for a host and their student. And again, my message is that if you have the right tools and tips and strategies, that you can move through those experiences in a positive way and come out the other side even stronger.
Very well said, Miss Jennifer. Very well said. And how does the book address potential cultural misunderstandings or conflicts?
Yeah, so I weave a lot of stories about cultural misunderstandings throughout the book. The whole book is based on stories, actually. I hadn't explained that earlier, but every chapter introduces somebody's story. I interviewed over 25 hosts and students for the book and combined it with my experience in homestay over the last 20 years and also used data that we collected from surveys that we've run of our host families across Canada. So there's lots of little examples of cultural misunderstandings and everything from language barriers and pronunciation blunders to people misinterpreting behavior. There's one example in the book. I share a story of my own experience traveling in China, and I was waiting in line to buy an admission ticket to the Forbidden City, and there was sort of a bank of ticket like people dispensing tickets, and then they had these railings to guide people to line up to wait for your turn to buy your ticket. And when I approached the window, when it was my turn, the gentleman who was in line behind me was standing. He came up right next to me and was standing at the ticket booth beside me. And I thought, goodness, that's quite rude of him to be sort of butting in line and trying to sort of make his way into the front of the line next to me. And when I analyzed that behavior from the perspective of a Westerner, it was rude. But when I thought about it from the perspective of somebody who was local to that particular culture in China, it actually was a totally normal behavior. That's just the sense of personal space and how people line up in Beijing is very different than in Toronto or Vancouver. So that's an example of a moment where I, as a tourist, could look upon a situation and understand it with a cultural lens rather than jumping to a conclusion about somebody's attitude or rudeness.
Yes, for sure. So, what are the main responsibilities of a host family according to the book?
The main responsibilities, I would say, number one is to, as I said, treat the student like they're part of your family. That's what this experience is all about. That's why students choose homestay as opposed to living in residence or an apartment or with extended family, because they want that experience with you. And so there's like that fundamental motivation that is really important, that you go into this, again, like I said at the beginning, not to make money, but to provide support um, and help to a young person, and to hopefully establish a lifelong friendship out of that experience. Then there are practical considerations too. So hosts are expected to provide room and board. So there's depends on the program and the age of the student. Some programs require hosts to prepare 3 meals a day for the student, and others there's fewer meals expected, because if with adults, they'll often prepare their own meals or buy food when they're out of the home. But even with the 3 meal a day program for host families looking after underage students, so when I say that, I mean minors, um, they they're not expected to wait hand and foot on a student. So they can show the student where the food is to make breakfast and show the student how to prepare their lunches. But meals at the evening meal is generally expected to be eaten as a family, because that's a great opportunity for students to interact with people in the family and to practice their English and talk about their day and so on.
Yes,
And then
that's
sometimes
nice.
there are sort of logistical expectations. Again, that depends on the program. Most of the time, students are expected to take public transit to and from school. But as I said at the beginning, sometimes hosts might be called on to drive their student to a particular soccer practice or a game on the weekend or something like that if they're involved in extracurricular activities. Maybe the buses don't run at a good time of night or whatever it is. So again, just the way you would with your own kid, if there was some kind of extra responsibility that you had as a parent towards your child to make sure that they're having a great experience, you might need to do the same thing with a student. Um, yeah, I think those are kind of the main expectations.
What tips does the book provide for integrating students into family activities?
Mm, yeah, the I keep coming back to the same thing, but it's really just about doing the kinds of things that you would do if you had somebody visiting from another city, that was part of your family, like a long lost cousin or a niece or nephew that you don't get to spend much time with, and you wanted to show them around and involve them in your family. So all the things that you would do with that kind of guest. And it also depends. I mean, for a shorter stay student, let's say they're coming for 2 weeks in July as part of a short term program, we would ask hosts to take them to Canada Day celebrations, or if they're in the US, to take them to Independence Day celebrations. Like there might be a fun thing like that that coincides with their stay that you'd want to make sure that they got that full experience. Same thing with like Thanksgiving or Christmas holidays. If you celebrate Christmas, you really want to make sure that they're benefiting from the families being able to provide them an opportunity to experience those things. And besides that, there's just a lot of like regular everyday life that happens. So
Yes.
we don't expect hosts to do a tourist activity with them every single day. Some of those touristy things are great when the student first arrive, but then it's really just about, living together and making the most of that time that you have together.
Yes, being part of the family.
Yeah.
So, Miss Jennifer, what will be your advice for those people out there, most especially international student, want to consider as a homestay option?
My advice for students.
Yes.
Yeah, do it. Yeah, I think if you have any questions or doubts about it would really help to talk to another student who's already had an experience in homestay. And there's lots of testimonials on any of the program organizational sites, like the sponsor organizations in the US or in Canada, your local school that you're applying to. They'll be able to connect you with other students who can talk to you about the experience. And there are always orientation guides that the school or the program will provide to help you feel better prepared for the experience. But I really think that if you're looking for a way to improve your English or French, if you go to Quebec, um, and want to learn about the culture and want to get acclimated to your new city or town, that homestay is the best way to do that.
What will be your advice? No, what will be your short-term and long-term goals in writing?
Mm. Short-term goal, of course, with this book, it's coming out on February 18th. So that's about 2 months from now. And so in terms of the next sort of 6 months, I'm just really excited to get it out in the world and hope that it finds an audience and the people who read it find it helpful. And long term, this is not my only book. It's my first book that I've published, but I have one other book that's completed that I'm going to be publishing soon, and a third book that I'm working on right now that I hope to have finished in the next year or so. So those other books are not about homestay, but they are, yeah, I'm excited for them to come into the world too.
Yes, 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 Miss Jennifer. Looking forward for those empowering books to come, and good luck for your goal. To sum up our discussion, how does the book encourage readers to view hosting as a way to bridge cultures and promote global understanding?
I think the way it does that is through the storytelling. So the reader will connect with a lot of families who have had a range of experiences that shed light on how to do homestay well. And the every example that I share in the book is hopefully provides some degree of inspiration for how that experience can benefit you and your family and your communities.
Yes, 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 Miss Jennifer Wilson. Again, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge to the world and looking forward for more empowering books like this. So, Miss Jennifer, can you please invite our listeners to support all your books?
Yes, please. You can pre-order my book now.
Go ahead.
And you can also find out more information about me and my background at jenniferrobinwilson.com.
Yes, people, let's support Miss Jennifer Robin Wilson because if you support her, as I said, more empowering books to come. So, Miss Jennifer, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
More to come, people. See you soon. Miss Jennifer, I'm inviting you next year to come back and promote.